Hello students, my name is Jagdeep. Before we begin, let me ask you, did you ever know that every time you get vaccinated, you are not just protecting yourself, but you're protecting people around you who you did not even meet? Now that is economics in real life. And today that exact idea is what we are going to break down in today's video. Welcome to Economics with Jagdeep. In this video, we will be covering positive externalities of consumption, one of the most important and frequently examined topics in IGCSE economics paper. By the end of the video, you'll be able to define it, draw the diagram correctly, explain market failure, and write exam answers that would actually help you get those A stars. So without wasting any time further, let's get started. Now, before we get on to positive externalities of consumption in technicalities, let us quickly recap what an externality is. There's a detailed video made on externality and the concepts around externalities. You can visit those if you are new to this video. Alright. Now, what is an externality? An externality is a cost or a benefit that falls on the third parties, someone who is not a part of the transaction, of that buying and selling transaction. Now, externalities could come from production or consumption, and under production and consumption, you would have positive for both and negative externalities for both. The focus for today's video is positive externalities of consumption. Let's take a look at the definition of what positive externality is. So, a positive externality of consumption occurs when the consumption of a good or service would lead to a spillover benefit over the third party. Alright? That means when you or the consumer buy or use the commodity or the service, someone else who is a third party, not a buyer or a seller to that transaction, would also get benefited from it. Now, they did not pay for it, they did not even ask for it, but they still do get the benefits. That is what a positive externality of consumption is. Now, let's take a look at some real world examples. The first example that I've quoted over here is education. So now, when a student goes to school and gets education, yes, there is personal benefit because the person or the student in this case is getting educated, correct? But along with this, the society benefits as well. Now, what benefits does the society get? Amongst the society, there are employers who would get skilled workforce. The crime rates in that locality or in that region would actually fall because people would have education to look for jobs and they would actually get good paying jobs. The standard of living or civic life would improve because of reduced crime rates, and all these benefits are for the people who are not the student, the third parties. Likewise, vaccination. Remember COVID? You taking the vaccine reduced the chance of someone with low immune system or a weak immune system not get infected because of you, correct? Now, this benefit is for these third parties who did not even pay for your vaccine. That's a positive externality of consumption. You actually reduced the risk of spreading of the disease. So, that's a positive externality of consumption. Another key example that you could quote in your exams is public transport. So, what happens when somebody chooses public transport over private cars? You would see less traffic and low pollution levels. Now, these are again the benefits for other road users who are the third parties who are getting this benefit because someone chose public transport or a bus or a metro over their personal cars. Now, this is for your homework to identify how exercises could lead to positive externalities. Clear? Of consumption. If you are able to figure it out, put that in the comment box below. Now, let's take a look at the key terms surrounding positive externalities. So, we do have MSP greater than MPB, what you see over here. What is MSP? So, MSB is the marginal social benefit and it is the total benefit that is available to the society by consuming one additional unit of that commodity. Alright, how do we get social benefit? Social benefit is arrived by adding marginal private benefit plus marginal external benefit. Now, what is marginal private benefit? So, marginal private benefit is the benefit available to the consumer himself or herself from consuming one additional unit of that commodity. Alright. Now, let's take a look at the diagram. Before we move on to the diagram, students, if you find this video helpful, please consider using the thanks button below. Your support is super crucial for creating more high quality and free content for students just like you. All your support is appreciated so far. Also, if you are watching this video on your mobile phone, please hit the hype button so YouTube could push this video to more learners just like yourself. So, let's take a look at the diagrammatic representation of positive externalities of consumption. So, we have costs, benefits and price on the y-axis, quantity on the x-axis. We do have the two curves listed here. Let's label them up. This is marginal private benefit. Since we are talking about the consumption side of the economy, we will assume that there are no externalities in the production side. So, this supply curve is marginal social cost equals marginal private cost. That means there are no externalities in the production side of the market. Now, this is your point of equilibrium, E. Let me bring down the price and quantity coordinates. So, this is the price determined by the market and quantity determined by the market. Now, what is happening at point E? So, I'll write it over here below the diagram. So, at point E, what is happening? The first thing is we have marginal private benefit equals marginal social cost, which is basically this curve and this curve, and this is definitely not the optimum level because we are equating private benefits with social costs. Since there are no considerations given to external benefits in this, so now we will bring in the external benefits. Where do you think the external benefits curve should go? Take a look over here. So, marginal social benefit is greater than marginal private benefit, which means that your marginal social benefit curve would be to the right of the private benefit curve. Let's draw that. This over here is your marginal social benefit. The vertical distance between them represents marginal external benefit. Now, at point E, what do we see? This is where your social benefit is and this is where the private benefit is, right? So, at point E, what is happening? Marginal social benefit is greater than marginal private benefit, correct? So, this is your point of equilibrium initially in the free market, and now this over here is your new equilibrium when externalities or external benefits of consumption are concerned or considered. Let us bring in the optimum price and quantity segments. So, this is price SO, this is quantity SO. Let us call this as R and let us name this triangle here. So, we have ER and T, okay. So, what is the new equilibrium? New equilibrium is at R, price is at PSO and quantity is at QSO. Now, SO stands for socially optimum. So, new equilibrium is socially optimum. Now, what happens to price? We see that the price has gone up. What happened to quantity? We see that the quantity has also increased. So, both price and quantity have increased. What does this indicate? It indicates that in the free market system, this commodity was under consumed. Since we are talking in terms of consumption, this is under consumed. So, this shaded triangle over here is your welfare loss, or you can also call it as dead weight loss. So, what are the key takeaways for this? Let's quickly jot that down. So, when there is a positive consumption externality, the first thing that you need to remember is there is under allocation of resources, or you can say too little of the good is produced relative to socially optimum level. How do we get to know that this is happening? Free market quantity is less than the socially optimum quantity, and you will see that marginal social benefit is greater than marginal social cost at the free market quantity, which is QM. Okay. Now, why do you think this is a market failure? Because in the free market, consumers will only consider their private benefit when making decisions. They will ignore the benefit they are creating for others, which is the marginal external benefit, in this case MEB. Alright. So, they consume less than socially optimum. Now, this is under consumption. So, if you see QM is less than QSO, which indicates that there is underconsumption, resources are not allocated efficiently, society is missing out. We do have this area of deadweight loss over here, because of which the market fails. Now, what can government do to take care of this? Government could subsidize the production so that consumption could increase because prices would fall. Second, government could start directly providing the commodity so that now everybody has access to this commodity and they are able to buy or consume the commodity. So, you can think of let us say school education in UK or health services in UK, they are completely free, directly provided by the UK government. Government could make it legalized so that consumption becomes compulsory or strongly encouraged. And finally, the government could increase the public awareness of the benefits that people would get after consuming this particular commodity. These are some actions that government could implement to increase the consumption of these particular commodities. Now, before I move on to the exam tips, if you are finding this topic difficult to understand, you could call me on the number displayed on your screen to get a free 30-minute session, and you could join me in my online tutoring sessions. I'm currently helping students from multiple countries like UAE, Singapore, Hong Kong and Qatar. Now, let's come back to your exam tips. So, when we talk about using the diagram in your exam, it is imperative that you label your diagrams absolutely well. Make use of MSB, MPB, the key terms in the diagram. You need to remember, in a positive externality, marginal private benefit is smaller than the social benefit. So, the marginal social benefit curve would lie to the right of the initial demand curve. And most importantly, please do not confuse consumption externalities with production externalities. If we are talking in terms of consumption externalities, you will assume no externalities in the other side of the market, which is the production side. If we are talking about production externalities, we will assume no externalities in the consumption side. Clear? Make sure that you quote examples in your discussions. That is the best way to get maximum marks for these questions. So that's about it for today's video. I shall meet you in the next one. Until then, bye now. Take care.